धन्यमयी सत्यमयी परमे ॐ आनन्दमयी चैतन्यमयी सत्यमयी परमे ॐ आनन्दमयी चैतन्यमयी सत्यमयी परमे Namaskaram. So today's topic is purification. Let us begin with a few lines from Savitri. All nature's recondite spaces were stripped bare. All her dim crypts and corners searched with fire, where refugee instincts and unshaped revolts could shelter find in darkness's sanctuary, against the white purity of heaven's cleansing flame. All seemed to have perished that was undivine, yet some minutest dissident might escape, and still a center lurk of the blind force. For the inconscient too is infinite. The more its abysses we insist to sound, the more it stretches endlessly. Then lest a human cry should spoil the truth, he tore desire up from its bleeding roots and offered to the gods the vacant place. He tore desire up from its bleeding roots and offered to the gods the vacant place. So today I think after quite some time, after a long gap, I got this opportunity finally to have this talk. And this is a very, very interesting and a very basic topic in spirituality, purification. So in today's talk, I think we will be covering the meaning of purification. Why is it important in sadhana? And what are some of the ways in which we can purify ourselves. So if we start, whenever you hear this term purification, generally the idea that I think for all of us, it goes to the word shuddhikarana, which more or less refers to the moral purification. That is, certain ways of behavior, not doing certain things, certain rules morally that we have, shouldn't lie, shouldn't, ahimsa, certain code of conduct and behavior. So that is more of a moral sort of a purification, and the other part is more to do with the rituals and rites that usually that we often familiarize the term purification with. Like what is it that we have to do before we do a puja, certain specific aspects that we light an agarbatti, light a diya, or use water as purification method while we are doing a puja. Like if you observe a lot of Brahmins, pujaris, the moment they touch their hair, again they sort of dip their fingers in the water and then they continue. When they drink something, So these are certain external forms of purification. And one step deeper is, of course, the moral values, moral purification that I talked about. However, what Sri Aurobindo and the mother gave us the meaning of purification is much deeper, more in the form of a spiritual purification. So, the object of purification is to make the whole mental being in which the divine reality can be reflected. So here what we are talking is making ourselves pure, and how can we do that? We will discuss, so that we can be a perfect instrument to receive the divine light, force and love. So become like an unobstructing channel in which the divine presence and through which the divine influence can be poured. In such beautiful words Sri Aurobindo has given us. Being like a clear vessel, like a perfect shape with which the God can mold us and mend us so beautifully. So the meaning, it can, we can deep down understand it's more of cleansing ourselves, transforming our whole nature. Now, what is the nature filled with? The physical, the vital impulses, the desires, the confusions, the imperfections, the impurities in the character. All of these are the things that are there as a part of our nature. So the purification process is to transform these and make ourselves a channel where the divine light can flow through us. So one of the stories in the Puranas that that we can understand this concept a little more deeper and symbolically, that comes to my mind and when I was looking up, was the Kaliya Mardana story. So if you understand this story, it goes back to when Sri Krishna was a child itself, and when he was playing, the scene is basically there is a river that's getting poisoned, toxic often, because of a serpent, a very demonic serpent that is there, which is called the Kaliya. The name was Kaliya for the serpent. So everybody complains and everybody is very scared and unable to use that water at all. And as children, Shri Krishna was playing with other children and the ball falls into this river, and Shri Krishna jumps into the river to fetch the ball. Then what happens? The Kaliya attacks and there is a whole fight between Shri Krishna and Kaliya. So this is a story which is commonly heard and understood. Now if we have to look at the symbolic meaning of this story, if we look at how Shri Krishna just goes down deep into the water to find Kaliya, is how we can dwell deep within our own selves to pick out these impurities. Again, we are not talking about the surface reactions or impulses, but a lot of these samskaras, again the word that you look at from the scriptures, are very deep rooted. So the jumping into the water, and if we are able to go deep within to take these impulses, root them out from the bottom, and what happens interestingly in the story, this serpent is said to have like 1,000 heads, and Shri Krishna is constantly jumping on each of these heads with a lot of force and putting it down. Again something else comes up, and again. So this dance, this cosmic dance continues for a lot of time, till finally Kaliya's wives, in fact everybody begs Sri Krishna that please leave us, we will not stay in this place, and you tell us what to do and we'll listen to you. So these heads, or this sort of coming back of Kaliya, is again our nature. Today we decide okay, today we listen to this talk, we go back home and we're like, yes, we feel great, and today I want to be quiet and have this peace with me. And suddenly, while going itself, there is there's somebody who cuts you on the road, and suddenly there is anger, and suddenly at home something happens, something which again affects you negatively, again you react again. So this nature is something, or rather these emotions, impulses, disturbances keep coming up. So the moment we are more persistent and have this will to constantly purify is when we will be able to go deep and take it out from the root. So this story was very symbolically it explained how to purify ourselves by going through the process rigorously. And another very similar word here is purity. So Sri Aurobindo talks about how purity is to accept the influence of the divine and no other influence but only the influence of the divine. So that is the meaning of purity. So the moment we are purifying ourselves, what are we doing? We are slowly cleansing our nature so that we are able to receive more and more. Right? So this process becomes more complete. Purification to purity and transformation. So, after reading the whole compilation and different places, to summarize this topic, 2 words: reject and open. So rejecting what is all our imperfections, rejecting all that is from the older nature, that is from the lower nature, all that is egoistic, all that is belonging to this rajasic nature of constantly that sort of a wave, up down, that sort of disturbance, removing that sort. And once we do this, or rather constantly this process happens simultaneously where we are removing it and opening to the divine influence, so that we are constantly being cleared of these imperfections. So rejecting and opening go hand in hand. So there are 4 aspects of yoga which are considered as the constituent elements, what Sri Aurobindo talks about. One is purification, the first one, liberation, perfection and delight. Shuddhi, Mukti, Siddhi and Bhukti. So it starts with purification. And all this purification is more like a release and delivery. Throwing away of something that is limiting us, something that is binding us. So as we're describing, you can reflect on what is it that's stopping me from progressing in the spiritual path. So that becomes your limitation. That is something that you have to reject. That is something that you have to throw away. And the imperfections and confusions also. A lot of time, you're doing something and suddenly in your mind, is there really, did mother really say this? Did mother actually, was she a god, or was she human merely? We get all these doubts. What did Sri Aurobindo say? Why did he say like this? So again, these are confusions. What is constantly trying to manipulate us, constantly trying to take away from the path, the doubts, all of that. And it's coming from our mental habits, our emotions, our temptations and our desires. So the more you purify, the more you are releasing yourselves from these. What else to be purified? Purification from sex, No sexual imaginations may enter and the sex impulse may cease. So even at the level of the thought, even thinking about not only the, of course, the act of sex or indulging in it, but even at the impulse level and at the thought level is what it has to be removed. Purification from desires and demands, having these needs, necessities, I want to do this, preferences, likes, dislikes. So that also has to be. Now you may ask, if I don't know what to do, how to do, then how do I lead this life? So then, of course, I'm here. What Mother Sri Aurobindo is trying to say, it's not your individual preference, but the more you take out your individual preference, you're giving way for the divine preference. So that is something we have to, what the divine desires from us, how the divine wants us to be the instrument, the perfect instrument, that's how I would want to be. Then purification from depression, which is again coming from some desire that is unfulfilled. You wanted to buy certain things, you wanted a particular job, particular amount of money from so and so place, and it doesn't come and you're disturbed. You had a disappointed desire and you are feeling sad about it, which is again taking you away from receiving the light, divine light and the force. So the moment you are purifying these desires, you are away from depression normally and naturally. So, like I said, it's not only purifying this, but you also have to do, on the other hand, simultaneously calling in the peace. What Sri Aurobindo says, this process of purification, if you go on doing by your own self, it becomes very burdensome and it becomes like, I can't do this. But he says, why can't you just call the divine and offer, keep offering. It's not you alone who is in this process. It is the divine also that is purifying for you, so that he or she can express and manifest in its fuller form. So there is the force that is coming down from above, and the more this instrument is opening, the more this instrument is calling, the force is automatically coming down. So it's a two-way process for this purification to be complete and whole. So this is also a beautiful answer to the question that yoga can never be tiresome. At least particularly integral yoga, when you're saying I'm so tired or I'm exhausted of meditation, exhausted of reading, exhausted, the moment you remove this I, the moment you separate this I, it is he, it is she that's there and that's flowing. So that sort of attachment is also released, and the light or the energy is completely different the moment you sort of move to this state of being. So you have to aspire for the peace in all the being and complete equanimity. Equanimity is the opposite of having these preference for likes and dislikes. So why is purification important? Again, like in what ways can we benefit from purification? Again, one small story here. So a person, when he just trying to dig from the mud, he suddenly finds a stone and he feels that maybe it is a precious metal. I'll go and sell it to the jeweler. So he takes the stone and he sells it, and the jeweler takes it, gives him 100 rupees. And the person was like, okay, I got something, and he's happy, goes away. Now this jeweler, what he does, he takes the stone and he understands that, okay, it is precious. So he takes it and puts a lot of pressure, a lot of force, and purifies it, removes all the dirt, cleanses it completely, and then decides to make a beautiful ornament out of it. And the moment this whole process comes to an end, the output of how it looked, can make the jeweler realize that this is worth millions. And that was the price that he could actually sell it for. So again, if we look at this story, each of us have the divine spark within us, right? So we are all those stones that was found, but it's just in an unpolished, unpurified form. The more we are purifying, the more we are. How are we becoming richer? It's not about the wealth, but it's more closer to your true self, because the true self is way more powerful, way more stronger. So the more we are purifying, the more we are entering close to our true self. So that's what purification does. Cleanses us and helps us reflect to our true self. And interestingly, it's not only us who can become better, but the world will be made better only in the proportion of how we make ourselves better. So here again, another point is, when we look at somebody and we don't like constantly, you're getting irritated. When you're talking to somebody, this person is being rude, this person is late, this person is lazy. A lot of these aspects of our own self is getting projected onto the other person. So because you have these impurities, imperfections somewhere deep down, you are not able to stand these behaviors of the other person. So at that time, you can ask yourself, can I reflect and understand why is this behavior or why is this attitude making me uncomfortable? What is it that I can change about myself so that I am more at peace or at an equanimous state, right? So a yoga of self-purification is the condition precedent to a yoga of perfection. That's what Sri Aurobindo tells us. The ills that humanity suffers from collectively and individually stems from the errors that lie at the roots of our ignorant nature. So the moment we clean it inside, the more we are able to see outside also as more beautiful. So once we again get into this process, we may experience impatience, we may experience like there's so much that's coming out, because it's a very laborious process to transform the nature. So what Mother says is, yes, this impatience is something that is natural, a normal reaction, but it is not exactly reasonable, which means that it's okay, but it can't be taken for granted that it is there. The more you have to continue working. And in the Upanishads, what Sri Aurobindo says is, the life energy that all of us have is constantly striving, limiting, it's trying to grasp, but again missing out, having a lot of desires, suffering. Only by purification is how we can know our real and eternal self. So continuing with why purification is important, just imagine you at the state of not being completely purified, which means you are not caring about anything negative, whatever it is, you are like that. So in that form, even a grace, even something good happens, a positive thing happens, you are not in a state to receive it. So no grace, no protection you can feel when you are not purified. So a person who rejects this purification process is unable to receive the grace. and for us to have a very safe spiritual progress, which means that a safe and a certain, again, both of these are important. You may today, you may feel like you're listening to the mother's voice, or you may see something in your dreams, a vision or something, like a spiritual guidance is what you could feel. However, how do you know whether this is actually, either it's coming from your psychic or if it is really the mother trying to communicate? Again, there comes the process of purification. To what extent have you purified yourself that you are able to see the truth as it is without these, adulterations or mixtures? It could be coming from an adverse force, it could be coming from something that is just trying to influence you or change you to its own what it wants you to do, and things like that. So, for you to understand what is the true call and what is it that you have to do depends more on how purified you are as an individual. So that's why it says safe spiritual progress and a stable spiritual progress. So for us to experience a pure sense of beauty, for you to admire something in its perfect form, purification can help you. There are so many flowers, today still remaining after the darshan day. Am I able to really connect to this beauty in its pure form? Again, if you question, there could be so many thoughts that are coming to you, there could be so many disturbing emotions, there could be something that is not allowing you to really enjoy that beauty, that delight. So again, purification, the role of purification comes the more it has refined your senses, your thoughts, your feelings, the more you are able to understand the pure sense of beauty. Like mother also says, knowledge by identification. The more you are able to identify with something, again, that happens only if you let go of who you are, that you are able to identify with what you want to understand. And purification and calm are the first needs in the yoga. So the more you are calmer, the more you are open, the more you tend to get purified. Right? So perfection. So for you to attain the state of perfection, like I said, the yoga of purification comes before the yoga of perfection. So when the higher, this is a beautiful phrase, lines from Sri Aurobindo, when the higher truth manifests, it must find in you a mind that is supple and rich enough to be able to give the idea that seeks to express itself a form of thought which preserves its force and clarity. This thought again, when it seeks to clothe itself in words, must find in you a sufficient power of expression so that the words reveal the thought and do not deform it. And the formula in which you embody the truth should be manifested in all your feelings, your acts of will, all your actions, in all the movements of your being. Finally, these movements themselves should by constant effort attain their highest perfection. It's very beautifully in this paragraph itself you can understand how we can purify our mind and our emotions and your will and your actions. So if we go a little deeper, Sri Aurobindo talks about, when it comes to integral perfection, it doesn't stop at the moral perfection. So morally, ethically, you can change the way your actions are certain desires, impulses, and you can probably stick on to few values of truthfulness, love, charity, compassion. So you may choose to develop these, but the Siddha of the integral perfection has to dwell in a larger plane of the spirit's eternal purity beyond good and evil. It is meant that the Siddha of active integral perfection will live dynamically in the working of a transcendent power of the Divine Spirit as a universal will through the supermind individualized in him for action. Here he talks about how we are able to connect to the pure eternal knowledge, the truth, the force, the delight all the time, and able to, almost our life will be a direct stream from the eternal fountains, not a form cut to some temporary human pattern. And for this change, he must make conscient in him that power of spirit and supermind which is now super conscient to our mentality. So something that is beyond our reach currently. The more we purify, the more we liberate, the more we accept and identify with the divine light and force, this is something that is possible. And for us to understand the self-knowledge, purification is the first level of process. Now we are moving to the last section almost as to what is it that we have to purify and what are some of the ways. So first thing, for us to purify ourselves, we need to understand, or rather we need to become more conscious of the different parts of our own selves. The instruments of ourself, that is the body, mind and spirit, right? So, and heart. So these are the four things that we need to understand what is influencing what. Like at this time my mind is saying this, my body is telling me this. So are you able to first be conscious of these aspects or these instruments of yourself saying things to you? Like, are you able to discriminate and differentiate that this is my mind telling, this is my body telling, this is my heart telling me something, this is my spirit telling me? So which means that so how can we do this more practically? A lot of times when you observe, I think an example of I go to yoga classes. So when I go to my yoga class, I can differentiate between what my body is telling me, what my mind is telling me, which did not happen in the initial classes. There was always a mixture. My mind is telling me no, I can't do this, I can't do this, and my trainer instructor was motivating me, pushing me, and I was trying to keep my mind aside and try to listen to what my body is actually telling me, which helped me go a little deeper in the practice, which made me realize, okay, the mind is only acting as a guide and it is giving me certain instructions that I cannot do it, but actually my body is open and flexible enough to go deeper, right? So here in this example, I was able to discern between what the mind is telling, what the body is trying to communicate. So in such, or rather in each of our situations in our lives, are we able to understand the influence of each part of the instrument that is impacting us? So that's the first step. And once we distinguish find out their basic defect of impurity or wrong action, and then strike at its roots after a deep diagnosis. So once we know which part is saying what, we are also able to understand or diagnosis where is the problem, what are some of the impurities. The mind is having these impurities, that is, it's confused, or it is manipulating, it is giving some wrong instructions or whatever, and the body is having these impurities of that sort of I don't know how to put it, may not be laziness exactly, but that rigidity comes from the body, that just being in some place and not being more more dynamic. The more you purify, the more your body is going to become dynamic. So that when you are able to understand that, okay, these are my impurities, now the next one is you trying to take out these impulses or imperfections from its roots. So this is one process. The second aspect is we have to also prepare our consciousness. The more we are able to respond and freely to the higher force, and the more we are preparing or uplifting our consciousness, the more we are purifying ourselves. Now, there are of course different ways that Sri Aurobindo talks about of widening our consciousness and deepening our consciousness and heightening the consciousness, right? 3 different ways. The more we are dwelling on these processes, the more we are, so through some poetry, music, writing, any of these practices can be used for us to elevate the consciousness, prepare the consciousness to receive the divine light. And other ways also can be to read more of Sri Aurobindo's works, read more of Mother's works, where we are able to connect, or rather, the more you feel disconnected. This is something again that personally was helping me. The days when I felt, I don't know why today is so disturbed, just go pick up some book of Mother Sri Aurobindo, whatever you have at home, and start reading. And automatically the joy that you experience while you read that book immediately connects you to their consciousness, and your consciousness is uplifted in a few minutes. That is another aspect of preparing yourself so that you are able to receive as much as possible. Then the next aspect of purifying is purification of your understanding. So understanding again is like I said, are you able to discriminate? Are you able to perceive, judge what is truth and what is not truth? So this is the process of understanding. So the true understanding is when you are able to follow these and receive the light in its pure form. Now, for us to have this understanding, you have to definitely purify the instrument at the mind level, body level, heart level, spirit level. Now we will understand how to purify the body. So, by means of a rational and discerning physical education, we must make our body strong and supple enough to make a fit instrument in the material world for the truth force which wants to manifest to us. So, like I said, our body by nature has certain impurities, that is, it could be coming from rigidity, or it could be coming from that lack of suppleness and flexibility, and that sort of lethargy that is there. So all of these are the different impurities that are there of the body. Instead of our body ruling our life, are we able to obey, make our body obey to what we want it to be. So here mother says, by its very nature, it is a docile and faithful servant. Actually, the more you work on your body, you realize it's actually easy to transform. It's actually easy because it listens to you if the mind doesn't involve with it. So recently I was listening to one of the interviews of a person who has done these major treks of 9 different mountains, very high elevations, altitudes of different mountains, high ranges, and there where there is no oxygen, and they have to carry so much weight, and literally you can't, sometimes they experience this confusion also, because at that level the oxygen is very less. So that person was talking in the interview about how it is not about the body at all, it is about the mind. The body is accepting, but when the mind becomes weaker is when the problems start. When it's the game of the mind, is what he was saying. The body is there to cooperate, but the mind is always demotivating, or it brings up all confusions and any sort of distractions, right? So we should make our body in such a way that it must be freed from this tyranny, and this can be only done through a constant union with the psychic being. So the calm, quiet, strong and poised at every minute, it will be able to put forth the effort that it is demanded. So just being calm and quiet and observing the body, because we can only understand what the body is telling us if you are able to regulate your mind, and there is going to be a new harmony that will manifest in the body. And actually, the more you are able to transform your body, there will also be a state where death may not be a necessity also. The more the work undergoes on the body, so it can be that it can go to that level as well. Then we have the purification of the vital being. So the vital being is always full of desires and depressions and confusions and all these negative emotions. So how do we do this vital being's purification? Is more of having the pure will and the calmer inner will. So not only the purity of the will, but the calmness of this will to allow divine's delight to flow. Then we have the purifying the chitta, that is the emotional mind. More it's moving to the heart, where the purifying of the heart, where we have some liking, disliking and all of that we discussed. So how do we do this? Is developing more of equanimity, more of samatha, more of the impartial love and delight. So as a part of purification of heart, what is the most important virtue is sincerity. So how can we purify our heart with sincerity? 4 points. No pretense with oneself. Not being more truthful to who you are. If you are able to recognize, I am not good at this, or this is my weakness, accept it rather than justifying it. A lot of times problems comes when people are not able to first accept what is the problem. They are only trying to deflect. It is this problem, it is because of this, because of him, because of that. But the moment they turn it inward, what can I change within myself? Then the pretense is reducing. No concealment from the divine or oneself or the guru. So what you are, being like a mirror to receive their force. So when you talk, or when you pray, just being as transparent, Mother, I have this ego. that is constantly being a hindrance to the way that I am able to be your instrument. Can you please help me dissolve this ego so that I can be more purer and purer, right? So that is one sort of a prayer where you are not concealing that this is your problem, but you're being more transparent. A straight look at one's nature and one's movements. Understanding your nature as much as possible in every minute, every day. Where is it that I'm not being a perfect instrument of the divine? Where is it that I'm missing out? So being very vigilant, again, that having that vigilance is extremely important to see when you're deviating, and a straight will to make them straight. So having this will to reject, will to keep working until you purify the heart, because that is something which is extremely important. It is the inner offering of the heart's adoration, the soul of it in the symbol, the spirit of it in the act, that is the very life of the sacrifice. If this sacrifice is to be complete and universal, then a turning of all our emotions to the divine is imperative. This is the intensest way of purification for the human heart, more powerful than any ethical or aesthetic catharsis could ever be by its half power and superficial pressure. A psychic fire within must be lit, in which all is thrown with the divine name upon it. In that fire, all the emotions are compelled to cast off their grosser elements, and those that are undivine perversions are burned away, and others discarded their insufficiencies, till a spirit of largest love and a stainless divine light arises out of the flame and smoke and frankincense. So beautifully, I think this paragraph explains how all of us should keep offering these impurities to the psychic fire that is constantly burning within you. Don't need somebody else to correct you, because there is that psychic fire within you which can act as a guide for you lifelong, right? And the last part is purifying the mind. The two parts, one is the sense mind, that is the habitual restless way of having these repetitive thought patterns. I want this, I need to do this, this is how it is. So constantly our mind is into judgment. That is a repetitive pattern that our mind is in. So can I purify my mind from these judgments? Can I purify my intelligence to make it more open, to make it more, take the will of the Supreme? So purification of the buddhi and purification of the manas, the sense mind. So once you do all of these, then you are moving more towards the freedom of experiencing the delights, freedom of understanding the eternal knowledge and light. However, I think this whole process is long and very slow and laborious. So here two other important things that can help us purify are the love, divine love, because love is an attribute that can go way beyond our mind. When you are not able to work with your mind, work with your heart, the more you're calling in and the more you're in love with the divine, I think that love itself can transform you. And the courage, you need to have the courage to be able to look at the impurities. For you to understand what you have to change, first you need to be bold enough. Now I am ready to see what is my mistake, to see where I am lacking. So that courage and love are extremely important to purify. So, what practices can you do? Okay, I'll go back home today. What is it that I can start with to purify myself? One, mother talks about writing. It is easier to write. It is easier when you write it down. You imagine that I am there. Then take a paper and write on it what you want to tell me. Then just the very fact of formulating it clearly sometimes give you the true picture of the situation and you can have an answer. Right? So this is the beginning of purification. So you can of course listen to bhajans, because Sravanam Mananam is also one way to purify. So this is something again very beautifully, it helps me. When I listen or sing mother's bhajans or Sri Aurobindo's bhajans, so my mind will stop acting and my heart and the bhakti and the love, divine love, increases, and that also can help me purify. So singing, music is also very cleansing. Poetry, and sometimes water. Just having a bowl of water and some of the common practices here, and lighting an agarbatti or a diya is also some practices which will help us purify. So again, one beautiful conversation from mother and Champak Lal. If you had understood and reacted in the way, you would have passed the test and got rid not only of this special difficulty, but probably of this hostile influence altogether. But you failed and got possessed. And only one thing was left to me to do. It was to flood you with the pure light, the white flame of purification, to chase from inside you the intruder. It is what you took probably for a cut in our relations, a wall of separation between us. There was nothing of the kind. I was inside you, penetrating you as usual, but in the form of this supreme purity, which is so foreign to all that is anti-divine or even to all ordinary human movement. So, how she assures that she is, or rather she can work from within. But we have to surrender, we have to open. Only then she will be able to, work through the flame that is within us. So I have a 14-minute meditation which is on purification, and from one of the talks, I found this helpful. So I think the last 15 minutes we can use it, all of us can actually do a practice that will help us experience this purification. Just one closing sentence and then I'll play that. It is a mistake to dwell too much on the lower nature. Now you may ask, so much of purification, should I only constantly look at what is wrong in me, what is wrong in me? Sri Aurobindo answers, which is the negative side of the sadhana. They have to be seen and purified, but preoccupation with them as one more important thing is not helpful. The positive side of experience of the descent is the more important thing. If one waits for the lower nature to be purified entirely and for all the time before calling down the positive experience, one might have to wait forever. It is true that the more the lower nature is purified, the easier is the descent of the higher nature. But it is also and more true that the more the higher nature descends, the more the lower is purified. Neither the complete purification nor the permanent and perfect manifestation can come all at once. It is a matter of time and patient progress. Purification, manifestation go on progressing side by side and become more and more strong to play into each other's hands. That is the usual course of sadhana. So you can
tuning the body, mind's home is in the body, not in the thoughts. So tune in with the body sensations. Come back home. Use the breath as a thread if you like. At the moment, we won't give much attention to thoughts. Put everything in the cloud of forgetting. Forget every worldly thing. Nothing matters right now. Just come back to your body, your palace. And in a movement where you become aware of the whole being at once, the whole of the body at once, offer each part of your body up above. If you are confused about the practice, offer the confusion also above. If you are having thoughts at the moment of unfitness, maybe I can do it, not do it, oh, this is not so okay for me, whatever, all the things that you notice within your being, burn it up, burn it all up with your will, with your consciousness. And notice the movement of burning up in your body. The fumes, the incense fumes, or the burning up, rising up from foot, soles, calf, knee, thighs, your buttocks, your waist, upper part of the body. Whatever you notice, burn it up, offer it up. Your throat, your thoughts, your heart, entangled emotions, half-done stories with loose threads, everything, just offer it up. Your face, movements in the face, sensations in the face, your hair, back of the neck, and everything is just rising up above your head. The flames are rising above, up and going beyond your head in an unceasing offering of the being. You are completely in the body. And the moment you become conscious of each part of your being, any part of the being, body, thought, feeling, sensation, don't spare anything. Burn it all up, offer it up with your will, Agni. Let it purify your being fully. Any thoughts come, put them in the cloud of forgetting. Burn it up. Don't think your thoughts. Feel the body sensations as you offer up. And go back again to those body parts. Check for sensations. If anything you notice, you offer it up. Come to your head, come to your heart, your hands, your arms, and collaborate in the unceasing offering up. And let your consciousness rise above the head as the flames also rise above your head. And above your head, get in touch with the vastness of yourself, which also is you. the vastness above your head. Stay there for a while, where the flames are rising up above, going beyond. And the higher you go above, and the vaster you go above your head, keep going further. Higher and vaster. Higher is upwards and vaster is your left, right, south, west, above your head. The vast field that you have above your head. That is also you. And if you become aware of again some movement in the body or thoughts or feelings, come back down again. Become conscious of that movement and again offer it up with your willpower, with your Agni, with your tapas. Keep the process on, and I'll just read a few lines on Agni by Sri Aurobindo from The Secret of the Veda. Agni is the most important. He is also the purifier. When he devours and enjoys, then also he purifies. He is the fire that prepares and perfects. He is equally the will in prana, the dynamic life energy. And in that energy, it performs the same functions. Devouring, enjoying, purifying, preparing, assimilating, forming. He rises upwards always and transfigures his powers into the energies of mind. Our passions and obscure emotions are the smoke of Agni's burning. If he is the will in our nervous being and purifies it by action, he is also the will in the mind, clarifies it by aspiration. He leads the active energies towards light. Agni then is the God who has to become conscient in the mortal. This is the practice that we are doing. Agni has to become conscient in the mortal. Therefore, is he the priest of offering, strongest or most apt for sacrifice. He who all powerful follows always the law of truth. Alone of the brilliant gods, he burns bright and has full vision in the darkness of night, no less than in the splendors of day. Agni manifests divine potentialities in a death-besieged body. Agni brings them to effective actuality and perfection, and he creates in us the luminous forms of the immortals. Agni, the divine will, is that which stands behind the human will in its works And in the conscient offering, he comes in front. This is what we are doing. In the conscient offering, he comes in front. He is the priest set in front, Purohita. He guides the oblation and determines its effectiveness. Let everything burn itself up in you with your conscious will, your consciousness and its power. Chit tapas. And let it rise high up and break the lid above the mind, which keeps us separated from our larger being. And enter and touch your larger self above your head and all around it. Concentrate and focus your consciousness there, above your head, around your head, around the body. It's all you. You are enveloping your body. You have taken a body. You are not just your body. And it's the same consciousness which becomes aware in you and burns things up. It's the same consciousness which is there in each one of us. There is no separation, no wall. And that's our oneness, that's our larger being. Slowly try to half open your eyes. Maybe you can start with looking at the ground or wherever, and see if you can still focus above your head, purifying your body, rising up with the flames and taking a station above and around your head. Open your eyes a little more and see if that is still possible. And get a sense of the feeling that you get in the center of your chest. That's the psychic being, if you can sense it. The larger self and the psychic being are both connected. So when you touch your larger self, the bigger self, the true self that you are, you activate or you call the psychic in front.